This is Appalachian Television Omni-Media, improving America. 302. Local wasteland time. If you're listening, then the night still has somewhere to put you. Before the story, one honest note. My Spanish isn't smooth. I can get the meaning across, but I still lose pieces on the way there. Tenses slip. Words hide. I keep talking it anyway, because I don't like the thought that someone could hear my signal and only catch the edges of what I'm trying to say. A few nights after I started doing those Spanish broadcasts, the frequency got crowded. Not loud, just present. A voice slid through the static from Mexico City, like it had been traveling a long time and finally found a place to land. He said his name was Xicohténcatl. We didn't talk like friends. We talked like two men checking in from different ruins, confirming the other's real, confirming the world still hurts in more than one place. He told me he listens for stories where he is, the same I do here, from travelers, locals, market talk. The kind of truth people only speak when they're sure you won't use it against them. And sometimes, when one of those stories won't leave him alone, he sends it north. Tonight is one of those. From the high country of Chiapas, Mexico, in a place called Juan Chamula. They call it the Green Guard of Chamula. Xicohténcatl said the mountains down there still hold their shape. The pine forests are thick. The air stays cool longer than it should. Fog rolls in like it remembers old routines. Juan Chamula is like one of those towns that didn't burn the way people picture the end of the world. No crater. No dramatic ruin. It withered. Quietly. With dignity. The church still stands. White walls dulled by time. A crack running down one side, like a long old injury. The plaza stones are worn smooth, by feet that kept moving even after the calendar stopped mattering. People still live there. Not because it's easy, because it's theirs. They keep their traditions close, not for show, for structure, for sanity. And in a wasteland where everyone's hunting something, food, water, power, revenge, Juan Chamula hunts something simpler, stillness. The story begins with a guard, not a man, something else. They call him El Verde. Sometimes they call him El que vigila, the one who watches. Xicohténcatl said you can't mistake him for ordinary, even from a distance. He glows, a low green light under the skin, the unmistakable color of radiation that decided to stay. But he's not feral, no snapping jaw, no hungry shriek, no mindless violence. He doesn't speak, he doesn't beg, he doesn't wander. He stands. He stands with the town guards, in the same places they stand, like he belongs to the rotation. There's a piece of cloth across his shoulder, a faded red sash, sun-worn, and threadbare, like it used to mean something official, before the world forgot what official was. And the guards didn't chase him away. They don't treat him like a monster. They treat him the way you treat weather. Something powerful. Something you learn to live beside, without pretending it isn't there. Xicohténcatl said the first time a traveler sees him, they assume it's a trap. They assume raiders have found a way to paint a ghoul and use him like a scarecrow. But Chamula doesn't do theater like that. Chamula does belief. And the locals don't talk about El Verde like he's a weapon. They talk about him like he's a boundary. Like the edge of a cliff you don't step over at night. A trader told Xicohténcatl about the candles. Not candles for celebration. Candles for placement. At night, people set them near the church wall, where El Verde sometimes sits. Not close enough to touch him, close enough to acknowledge him. The flames flicker in the mountain air, and that green glow answers back, steady and quiet. No one tells him to sit there. No one orders him to stay. He just does. And here's the detail that stuck. The one Xicohténcatl repeated, like he needed it to be true. El Verde has been seen praying. Not loudly. Not like a sermon. Not like a performance. Just hands folding slowly. Surely. Like the motion lives deeper than a language. No one taught him to do this after the war. That's what makes a town uneasy. And that's what makes them accept him. Because in a place that still believes in omens, a thing that returns to the church and prays without being asked, that isn't a coincidence. That's placement. Xicohténcatl said Chamula didn't decide in a meeting. Nobody held a vote. They watched. They weighed it the way people weigh anything out there. By consequence. If El Verde had come to harm them, he would have. If he had come to take, he would have. But he didn't. He stood at the edges of town, at the tree line, at the narrow road that leads down to the mountain. And the town got quieter. Not safe exactly. Nothing safe. But less interrupted. There are raiders in those mountains. Not always the painted, screaming kind. Sometimes just men with rifles and empty stomachs. They learn early that other people are easy to steal from than the earth. For years, the forests around Chamula were a problem. Caravans avoided the pass. Families locked doors early. Guards slept light. Then El Verde appeared. Xicohténcatl didn't say he arrived, because no one saw him come in. They noticed him, the way you notice a new rock in the river after a flood. He was just there, near the church first, then at the boundary, and after that, they started telling time differently, not by months, by absence. No one has seen a raider leave the forest alive in 5 years. That's what the locals say. Not as a boost. In fact, they don't decorate. 5 years, and the forest is still thick. Still quiet. Still full of places a man can vanish. But it vanishes people differently now. Xicohténcatl said a scav once came through and tried to test it. Every place has someone like that. Someone who thinks that the world is a dare. He approached El Verde, too fast, too close, and laughing, like laughter keeps you safe. He waved a machete in the air like it was a joke. The town guards didn't move. That's a detail that matters. They didn't rush to save the scav. They didn't shout. They didn't intervene. They watched the way you watch a man step towards a cliff after you've already warned him once. El Verde lifted his head, and the scav stopped laughing. Because the green light is one thing. The attention is another. Xicohténcatl said the scav backed away slowly, hand trembling, the machete lowering without him noticing. He left the town that day, alive, and he didn't talk big about it afterwards. He didn't need to. He'd been measured, and he was found wanting. The locals don't tell outsiders the whole story. Not because they're hiding something, because outsiders always try to name it, and naming is dangerous. Some say El Verde was once a town guard. Someone who stayed when everyone else fled. Some say he was a soldier who came home and never left again. Some say he was a priest, and the war burned away everything from him, except the motion of prayer. Xicohténcatl said none of them agree, and none of them argue. The truth doesn't matter. That's what makes it feel older than the wasteland. They don't need the origin to accept the function. But there's a detail. A cross. Not a clean one. A cross stamped into an old chest plate, half melted, with the edges rounded by heat and time. And that cross, Xicohténcatl said, glows through El Verde's skin at night, like something trying to shine from inside the bone. The traders who've seen it don't call it holy. They just call it real. And Chamula? Chamula has its own way of living besides things that are real. There are stories in the wasteland that try to turn every mystery into a threat, or into a miracle. But sometimes it's neither. Sometimes it's just a thing the world made, because the world needs a new kind of guard. A man who doesn't sleep. A man who doesn't eat. A man who doesn't get bored, or bribed, or tired. A man who doesn't take orders because he doesn't need them. He stands at the boundary and makes the boundary feel like it exists again. If you've lived long enough, you've learned the truth about protection. Most of it is paperwork and promises. Most of it is someone saying, "I'll be there," and meaning it, until they don't. But every once in a while, the wasteland produces something else. Something that doesn't have to be convinced. Something that doesn't have to be paid. Something that just keeps watch. Because keeping watch is all it has left. So, here's how the story ends. Not with a fight. Not with an explanation. With an image. A cracked church wall in the mountains. Pine smoke in the air. Candles placed at the edges of steps, like small careful offerings. Town guards standing with their rifles, and their tired human eyes. And beside them, El Verde, silent, patient, glowing like a wound that decided to become useful. Some guards need a badge, others a uniform. El Verde wears a shroud of light. Maybe it's radiation, maybe it's grace. And Chamula? They don't ask which. That story came north the hard way. Appreciate it, Xicohténcatl. You've been listening to Midnight in the Wasteland. And I'm Nightwatch. I'll be back tomorrow, if the quiet stays kind. Until then, if you find a place that still holds its rituals, don't laugh at them. Sometimes tradition is the only fence left. And sometimes, standing quietly at the edge of the trees is the difference. It's the difference between a town that survives and a town that disappears.